Hello all, and welcome to tonight's beer review, which I'm calling the Dead of Winter beer review because it's a dead of Hawaiian winter. And what does that mean in the dead of Hawaiian winter? Well, it means for us who live here on the coast, it drops down at night to that ultra low 66 or 67 degrees Fahrenheit. So that is why I am wearing a flannel, because it is very, very cold right now here in Hawaii. So, what kind of beer do we drink when it is very cold out? Well, of course, we drink something called Forever Summer POG. POG being Passion Orange Guava. Now, more seriously, obviously you can see it's a bomber, so you know it's something a little bit more, I have to go and fix this light. It's got way too much glare here. You know, this is from Lanikai Brewing, which is, of course, the brewery located in the town I live in, Kailua. Probably giving a little bit of way too much biological information away here. And they basically release only bombers, and recently they released two new bombers, limited editions. One was this one, the Forever Summer POG, which is a sour ale brewed and flavored with passion fruit, mandarin, and guava, which is on the beer sites labeled as Berliner Weiss, and also, but they've also had it as a brewery only sort of release. So the brewery only release was 4.2 ABV, and also advertised as being wild fermented. This one for the bottling is 5.3, slightly higher in ABV, but still well within style guidelines at 5.3. So sours are not very alcoholic, unless of course you're Lagunitas and like that deer and, please excuse me, deer and salad. That was actually pretty boozy for a sour, about as boozy as a sour gets, but I digress. Let me read the label, shall we? From the mountains to the sea, LBC's seasonal tribute to Hawaii's rare and exotic fruits and flowers. Each limited edition batch is made to showcase our favorite local ingredients and flavors. Island sourced, island inspired. The original POG beer brewed in Hawaii for Hawaii. Made with locally sourced passion fruit, mandarin oranges, and guava, this refreshing and tart sour ale is a perfect complement to a long day in the sand and sun. So not very hoppy or malty. The primary note here is sour. I do not know whether this, the second release of it is wild fermented. I kind of hope it is, but it's not on the bottle. I figure if it was wild fermented, they would put it on the bottle, but wild fermentation is really difficult to kind of pull off on a large scale. I believe that's why the first rendition, I believe, was only brewery only. They made one or maybe two batches. This one for bottling, of course, they got to go and make much more batches because they're a microbrewery, so they only have like the one, I forget what the term is, but it's per, in order to go and meet all the bottling standards, you got to go and make multiple batches, which is very difficult to do with wild fermentation. And which is kind of sad because their location is right on the edge of Kauai Nui Marsh, which is sort of a protected wetlands in Kailua. So I was kind of wondering what kind of wild yeast would come off a Hawaiian wetland that is filled with many ducks and other waterfowl, local waterfowl, local endemic and native waterfowl. Well, enough talking. Let's get to this. Let's open this up. Again, 5.3. Looks like it wants me to serve it not in this kind of glass. It wants me to serve it in a goblet-style glass. I'm going to go and grab the tulip really quickly. I should have paid attention to that. My reviews are so professional, aren't they? Already 5 minutes in, we haven't even cracked the beer open. Let's get to this, shall we? I'm going to be going for the head first because in my experience, sours tend to have a head that recedes fairly quickly. Actually, this is giving up a pretty good head. Slightly fizzy, but not overly fizzy. And as like with most sours, very light yellow. Very, very light yellow. Oh, and wow. Big juicy sourness, very tart smell. Oranges, guava, and passion fruit, like it says on the label. A bit of wet stone. Funk. Big funk. Sort of both weedy funk and the kind of odd yeasty funk. I'm wondering if this is wild fermented. Lovely coloration. You can see it's sort of natural, not overly filtered. Nicely carbonated. Absolutely wonderful smell. Just that sourness, tartness, wet stone, and you know, the adjuncts, the fruit adjuncts there, all coming through and playing together nicely. Distinct, but all there. And sour. It's not super tart, it's not face puckering tart, but it's definitely sour. Interestingly, in the initial front is sweetness. Sweetness is what lands on your tongue first, and then that tartness rolls in. The finish is nicely of wheat funk, residual tartness, and another sort of vaguely defined funk, and also a taste that I sort of, let me see here. It's a taste I sort of associate like the aftertaste of eating fresh guava jelly or fresh passion jelly. It has a very distinct aftertaste to it when, you know, it leaves your palate. You're just eating the jelly. That's also there in the finish. Between the bouquet and taste on the tongue, it really smells like you're standing right next to a loaded guava tree. You smell that ripeness. There's a lot of ripe tropical fruity notes in there. And it's very different from, from how it expresses itself in an IPA, which is something that other people say, oh, what's the tropical notes there? This has tropical notes, but it is tropical fruit notes, but it's completely different because it's a completely different base palette that is being layered on here. It's not something that is being derived from hopping or, sort of mixing from hopping and adjuncts. It is coming directly from the adjuncts onto a very light and tart base palette. Unfortunately, once the head's kind of gone, bouquet kind of, it declines quite a bit there, but it's still there. I was a little bit afraid that it would be a little bit too acidic, where it becomes kind of, where it would lead to sour stomach if you drank it, but I'd say it's right on a very decent level of acidity. Mouthfeel wise, very light. Though somewhat hard to detect that because of the tartness. It causes a strange sensation on the palate where it makes it very difficult to kind of taste the density of the fluid. But honestly, very light, no stickiness, no real cloying aspect, sour, light, I wouldn't say it's watery because of the intensity of the taste. As it warms up, the sour notes and the funky notes kind of widen and expand. Fruit notes kind of become a little bit more more muted. Very enjoyable, very refreshing. This is the kind of thing that, like it says on the label, you would want to take to the beach on a hot day. Unfortunately, this only comes in bombers and not, well, bombers and growlers if you go down to the brewery and have a growler fill. And after, like most local brews, especially Lanikai Brew, which is very small batch, kind of on the pricey side. If I remember correctly, this bottle itself cost over $11, I think maybe even over $12. I can't actually remember correctly. So while it would be something that is perfectly sessionable, especially if you're like me and concession sours, some people have palate blowout after one, you probably wouldn't be able to afford to. Unless you're one of those new residents of Kailua who somehow have invisible means of support, like my neighbor that way, who is a perfectly nice Swiss guy, but for some reason, well, he's a nice guy. He's absolutely loaded because he went and built his house from scratch and is one of those nice, super arty houses. You know, all of us have been trying to guess what he does for a living, and none of us can figure it out. He disappears for periods at a time. No, he's not a drug lord or anything like that. It's just, it's obvious that he is insanely wealthy, but no one can figure out what it is that's made him insanely wealthy. Other than the fact that he must do something because he disappears for several weeks at a time. But I digress, it's almost 13 minutes. No, actually, probably going to have some beer with him. You see, he's actually kind of a drinker guy himself, and kind of a connoisseur. He seems like the kind of person who would be a connoisseur, too. So, Lanikai Brewing, Mauka Makai, Forever Summer POG. Great local beer from a great local brewery. You know, it's nice to have a good local brewery in town, even if I can't afford to go to them. Hope to explore more local breweries as the year goes on, especially if I get another better job, so I can go and have growler fills. Right now, I'm literally working 7 days a week. So, I mean, literally, I am working 7 days a week. And this is one of my 2 drinking nights. It's the nights when I can sleep in, pretty much. That's what counts as a break for me now, is being able to sleep in. And I kind of have to, because it's switching from swing shift to graveyard, so hence, might as well go and drink to pass the time, eh? Wonderful beer. They also put out a barley wine, which I am not going to be reviewing because, one, I found that I'm not too big a fan of barrel-aged stouts and barley wines, and they tend to cost a lot, so it makes very little economic sense for me to go and buy a variety of beer that is, one, costly, no matter who produces it, and 2, I'm kind of meh about as a style. So, but this, I love sours, so I'm willing to go and spend money on sours. And this is a great sour, great Berliner Weiss. Well, folks, that's your beer review for tonight. Cheers.